Hi, Tormod here, and I want to talk about this book, the Bible, and the story of Jesus that we've been taught in various ways in the Western world, um, where, less than 1% of what Jesus actually said and did walking earth is actually mentioned in this book. Less than 1%. The reason why I can say that is that this book is not this book, which is what very many nations found their constitution on, swear by the Bible, and they have made this world from the Roman Empire and the city of London and Washington, a triangle and a pyramid structure of bullshit that is supposed to be reliant on Christian belief and the Bible. But, if the words from Jesus were actually written down as he said them, we would have a totally different world today. Because one thing that's very evident with this book is that there was very powerful people directing what was written in this book at that time. Because what Jesus represented was a total upside down reality of what was existing when he was here. I repeat, what Jesus suggested when he walked the earth was a total upside down shift of reality. To give as you want to receive, to love thy neighbor, to create an equal and one world with the physical living word, the flesh of man as the divine, with the flesh of man as the divine, and not some fling in the mind. With the flesh of man as the divine, as the Godhood, and not some fling polarity in the mind, in the consciousness, in the mind system. Because that is what have been fooling us all the time. Our mind system, our ego, our consciousness, our personalities, and our beliefs, feelings, thoughts, and emotions. So the people that were in charge of the world back then, 2,000 years ago, would make sure that not all, and would make sure that very, 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 very little of what Jesus actually said and did was written in this book. Because how could they accept that they would lose their fortune or their power or their influence and their security? They would risk all that, obviously, yes. Because what Jesus suggests is an equal world, one and equal world. And that is what we're here to create, a one and equal world, obviously. But the fundament of the Western religion with Christianity is way off. And we know that. We see this. We make fun of them in documentaries and all that. Religion is a gigantic something, that is brainwashing us. If one thing more than anything else, it has been brainwashing us. Okay? Because the people who were in charge of society back then would make sure that very, 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 very little of what Jesus actually said and did when he was walking the earth was written in this book. Very, very little of it. So this is something that I have from listening to Eqafe, to the Crucifixion of Jesus series, through walking my process of forgiving myself and realizing myself as the living flesh, the physicality, the being of me, the universal being that I am on my inside, in my body. Not some energetic fling, but me as the physical flesh, living Garden of Eden within myself. That is the key. That is why we sing and rejoice, to honor the physical, the being inside, and change that whole stance from the superior mind with ego and consciousness, which is a scam and deception and imaginary. On top of it, it's imaginary, into giving back to the source, to the life, to the juice, to the organs, to the beingness that I am on a universal level. Okay? To me, this makes it all so much more interesting to realize that the message that some are able to extract from this book to create, to pass through the eye of the needle, to create a heaven on earth, you have to become like a child, the innocence of a child. To create heaven on earth, you must become innocent like a child, to give as you want to receive, to do against others like you want them to be done against you, to you. All these things, the golden rules that are mentioned somewhere in this book, many places. But most of the, most of the potential, most of the message, the real message and the real simplicity of the physical divine that Jesus was explaining is not mentioned in this book, because the people in charge of society back then were not interested in losing their money, their power, their authority, their influence and all that. So they wrote something very, 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 very marginalized. That is what we've been brainwashed, and we argue about this, don't we? We make it a polarity of God and atheism. God and atheism, polarity. Right and wrong. So, yeah. That is something I want to share now, that, if you're interested in any links that if you have interest, that I could show you some links to my material that I've investigated, and for myself, my process of becoming physical, becoming the living word. Please let me know, because what we have been telling ourselves in church and everywhere has been brainwashing. The story is really simple. It's a simple story to reverse the whole system, because we've been living in the opposite of life, where death and destruction and porn and violence and killing and hurting of life have been generating most money, obviously. What we have been seeing in the world is that the hurting of life, poisoning and cutting down forest and taking from nature and hurting life have been giving us the most money. So that means it's totally fucked up. It's totally insane. Okay? So we need to find back to ourselves, who we are as individuals, who we are as beings inside ourselves, as the physical living flesh of man. And that being we have inside of us, that we know who we are as a being. So this is some perspectives from me I want to share about how I relate to Jesus. And yeah, if you have questions, feel free to ask me. And I'll be glad to share with you some of my links and my material. Thank you very much.